In addition to all of that, there are plenty of opportunities here in India that are already happening, even though many Indians are new to Facebook. One of the most interesting, which doesn't seem to be loading right yet on the page, but hopefully was just this past week. I don't know how many of you saw it, but the Economic Times partnered with Facebook around the national budget to enable everyday people to have a conversation about what they thought about the national budget, what should be a top priority, and what should be part of the dialogue and part of the debate. As a result, just last week, the finance minister here in India met with the Economic Times to talk about all of the comments and all of the feedback that they got through Facebook and through interactions on the Economic Times website. It's also important to note that people didn't even have to come to Facebook.com to engage in this debate. You go to the Economic Times website, you log in with your Facebook user ID and password, you communicate with the world at large, and you also can see what your own friends and the people that you know are saying in the midst of the debate. In addition to that, there's a slide of what happened just last week. In addition to that, Facebook also gives unprecedented access to public figures and celebrities. Here, Amar Khan, who many of you guys know, engages personally his supporters on his Facebook page in dialogue with them about whatever they're thinking. This type of access was never possible before previously. You used to just be able to sit back and watch and consume. Now you can be part of the conversation and part of the debate. So one example that I'd like to talk at length about is my own personal one with the Obama campaign. So I spent 3 years at Facebook working on the user experience, the design, and the individual's set of functionality that they had at their disposal for how they use the network. But in 2007, I went and signed up to work for Barack Obama to direct online organizing for his campaign. And from the very first day, we were very practical about what we were doing. What we did not want to do was use social networking just because it was cool. We weren't interested in getting buzz or in being a hip candidate or in being cool and being on Facebook to be part of that. Instead, what we were interested in was votes. Because we knew that at the end of the day, we could have a lot of buzz, and a lot of political candidates have, but buzz doesn't convert to votes. People and impassioned supporters who know where, when, and how to do it, and can bring their friends and can bring their family along, are what make the difference. So with that in mind, what we did do is we took a step back and we said, okay, what does all of this networking technology offer us? It's the ability to enable people en masse, wherever they may be, to share a little bit about who they are and what they believe, then to connect with other individuals who are like them, whether it's friends or people that they might not yet know, and then most importantly, to act, whether that's financially, knocking on doors, making phone calls, doing any of these things that are part of the American electoral tradition. So I've got all sorts of slides here, but I think I'm going to give up on them and just try to articulate a few of the key things that we did. On the campaign, people came to understand that the entire effort was about them. Normally in American political campaigns, you have a single candidate who comes and you have a few focus groups and you develop a message and then you put on some 30-second ads on television and you call it a day. You hope that enough people show up. This campaign was radically different. We said, we're going to be about an individual's capacity to believe and then to connect to other people who are likely to believe as well, to get those people in the car and then go to the polls and vote. You'll notice, if you understand what's been happening with social networking technology, this intersected directly with the revolution that we're currently undergoing. It's now easier than ever for people to do exactly this. Say, I believe in a candidate. I believe in a cause. And I'm interested in finding other people who would believe in it as well, so that we can work together. As a result, we created a culture on the campaign which was not about us in headquarters creating great content or creating a great television advertisement and blasting it out. Instead, it was about our supporters being the voice of the campaign. We created 1,500 videos on YouTube, and some of them really moved, and that's great. But what is a much greater testament to the strength and power of the campaign was that our supporters were the ones who created tens of thousands of videos about who they were, why they supported the campaign in the first place, and what they believed their country could be. Similarly, if you would come to our website and take a look at any of our pages, you oftentimes wouldn't even see Barack Obama, the candidate, front and center. Of course, our policies, our issues, all of these things were there. They were packaged in. But if you came, what you would see was a story of a supporter. Who they were, why they cared, and what their hopes and dreams were. You see this in the way that we wrote the Democratic Party platform. It wasn't a group of 10 people sitting in a room in D.C. who came up with a program and then distributed it to the world. Instead, we opened the doors. We asked all of our supporters to hold house parties in their homes, in churches, in community centers, in schools. Invite people over and say, what do we stand for? What is the Democratic Party about? What should be at the heart of this campaign? And then put all of those ideas together, use technology to mass thousands of these ideas together, and that information itself became the party platform and became who we were as a campaign. As a result, people were compelled to act. Because people had a role and had a voice, they felt that it was their responsibility to make sure Barack Obama was elected president. That's the right word, responsibility. As soon as you offer an individual the chance to own and truly feel a part of something important and believe in it through and through, then it's no longer an option of whether or not to support or whether or not to give $25 or to show up on a Saturday morning. Instead, it becomes a responsibility on the part of our supporters. As a result, we raised over $500 million online alone. Average donations, less than $100. As a result, we had, going into Election Day, a tremendous fundraising advantage over our opponent, something that's been unparalleled in American history. But those numbers, even though they're top lines, I think are only just the highlights. What's more inspiring to me is that at the end of the day, we had 13 million people connected to our campaign online. That's 1 in 5 of the number of people who came out and voted for us on Election Day, on November 4th, 2008. We also were able to build a technology platform that created over 200,000 community events, 25,000 grassroots groups, and a whole culture and ethic of political activism and responsibility. So when we call the Obama campaign a technology movement, what we mean by that is an entire collection of people who believed in a cause and believed in a candidate and used technology and all of the opportunities that were offered to make that a reality. One thing that I think is really important to clarify. You probably think, since I'm up here and I'm 26 and work in the field of Facebook and Obama and technology, that everybody who is connecting to us on the campaign must have been in their 20s or 30s. It's actually not true. On Facebook and on other networks, it tended to be, at that time, mostly people in their 20s and 30s. But on our own campaign website, the majority of people were in their 40s and 50s. These were people for whom technology was not an intimidating concept, but instead an enabling factor to empower them to actually participate in the campaign. We crossed demographics, we crossed platforms, and we did it in a way that was able to create a true watershed moment, I believe, in American political history. The question then is, how can other people use this? What are the opportunities that exist? Facebook is, in many ways, a one-of-a-kind platform that wires the people on the web and wires the world. And the Obama campaign, too, was a particular campaign with a particular candidate at a particular moment in history. I don't think that it's smart to try to think about recreating the Obama campaign in another time in America or in another cultural context, for instance, here in India. However, there are very clear principles that each of these initiatives demonstrate, which I would recommend that anyone, whether they're in politics, business, the arts, you name it, think seriously about, because they're going to impact your own work. I'll highlight 3 or 4 of these things, and then we'll open it up for questions. The first is individuals now have the capacity to share much more broadly than they ever have had before. It's easier for them to express excitement or disappointment. If I had the thing I would show you, if at any moment in time, you could go on a network like Twitter or you can go on Facebook and you can see what people are thinking about any particular concept or any particular brand, person, or idea right now. And guess what? It's not just you who can do it. It's anybody who's out there. As a result, you can think of the customer or the citizen as having a megaphone. They can speak much more broadly and to a lot more people than they've ever been able to before. That means that you've got to make sure that they're satisfied. If you're in business, I think customer satisfaction is becoming incredibly more important day by day. If you're in politics, that means actually listening, not just saying you're listening, but actually listening to what citizens are saying is becoming increasingly important as time goes by. The opportunity that currently exists is to be able to get real, anecdotal, genuine feedback in real time on any idea that you're curious about through the web. That's now possible. And if you don't take advantage of that, you're leaving a lot of opportunity on the table. A second implication is that even though it may seem that institutions are becoming less important, I would argue that institutions and brands are becoming increasingly important. People ask me all the time, what's the future of news? What's the future of newspapers? And I think that there is a very robust future for these types of institutions. After all, historically, these have been the groups that have vetted all of the information that exists on any given day to find what was most close to the truth and what was most timely and relevant. We still need these institutions. In fact, I would argue we need them even more because everybody has a megaphone and everybody's talking. There's so much more to listen to, and we just simply can't listen to everything every day. Instead, we have to rely on institutions and filters to tell us what's most important. New York Times or India Today can be these sources for us. But so too will our friends, and so too will all of the people that we trust, whether they be bloggers or individuals. That's fine. Third and finally, the final implication that I'd like to highlight before moving on is the opportunities for collaboration have significantly expanded. By that I mean we used to live in a world where you had a pyramid, and the most important people were those on the top who would just talk to a few different individuals, then make a decision where everyone else was affected. I think a much more useful model, I think a much more useful model now is to think of our world as a network. And as a result, it's much easier for individuals to talk to one another about what they believe and to solve problems collaboratively. You'll see up here, just to take a half step back, this is U.S. Airways, which is one of the main airlines in the States. And at any given point in time, you can take a look on Twitter and see what their feedback is, and you can see all kinds of stories. I lost my bag. The stewardess was rude. You name it. And there's actually a measurement which can tell you at any given point in time, you can use a third-party service to tell you the strength of the brand. And for something like US Air, it's 60% negative, 30% neutral, and statistically insignificant people who are positive. It's that type of feedback that you can get in real time on any concept at any point. To finish out, collaboration is more important than ever. The opportunities for individuals to actually participate and to offer their own expertise are now unparalleled. In an old world where we had to rely on just a few experts to tell us the truth, it's now possible for a conversation to be happening on any given topic, if that's internally at a business or if that's much more broadly on an important political issue. The opportunities for collaboration are truly unparalleled historically right now. To close, I would say that the only requirement that I can say is one for all of us is to think critically about how technology integrates into our lives. We're so embroiled in our BlackBerries and our iPhones and our laptops that I don't think we take enough time to think about how all of these objects and all of these networks are radically changing the way we are, the way we live. Facebook and all the other networks that are out there are not just for your kids, and they're not just fun. They're actually serious institutions and platforms which are changing the way that we live as individuals, changing the way that we can participate in political and normative discussions, and changing the way that we live our day-to-day lives. I'm excited for the opportunities that these offer for collaboration in the future, and I hope you are too. And I'm happy to take some questions.